Hello and welcome to the next video in the series of videos for EdgeRater PRO Unleashed launch event. And the whole launch event actually ends this Sunday, August the 25th, and that will be the last day that the special offer pricing is in effect. So just a little heads up there. In this video, we are going to cover something new for August. You would have seen in the previous videos that I talked already about some of the trading templates that are available in EdgeRater PRO Unleashed. And the template that was released in July was the short selling stocks with Connor's RSI template, which fully implemented the strategy guide published by Connor's Research. This month, August, and what we're going to cover actually in this video is all about ETF trading with Bollinger Bands. That happens to be another strategy guide that's released by tradingmarkets.com and Connor's Research, written by Larry Connors, Cesar Alvarez, and Matt Radke. And this strategy guide now complements all of the other implementations of the strategy guides that we have within EdgeRater PRO Unleashed. In this video, I'm going to cover the implementation details within EdgeRater PRO Unleashed. So it sort of goes a little bit further than the simple customization that I talked about in one of the previous videos. And I'm also going to look at the results of running this particular trading strategy over a set of ETFs over the last 5 years. And we're going to look at the statistical results of that run. And you'll see that the results are actually fairly impressive. We'll get to review them a little bit at towards the end of this video. But we're going to look at the implementation details first. And so that everybody is on the same page here, if you haven't read that strategy guide or if you don't own it, then we'll just review quickly the setup criteria for a signal. And now the setup criteria are as follows. The close price has to be greater than the 200-day moving average of close. The 21-day average daily volume has to be greater than 125,000. The %B value of the ETF must be under X for Y days in a row. And X can take on the value of minus 0.2, minus 0.1, 0, 0.1, 0.2, or 0.3. They form different variations. And Y can be 2, 3, or 4. And %B, by the way, for people who don't know, is the relative location of the close price within its Bollinger Bands. And when the strategy guides talk about %B, they're using the settings of 5 and 1 for the actual Bollinger Bands. So just bear that in mind, because it's different to pretty much the standard settings that are talked about when people talk about Bollinger Bands. People talk about the 20 period moving average and 2 standard deviations. But with Connor's work, they talk about the 5 period moving average and 1 standard deviation. Now, the entry criteria, provided the setup criteria are already met, are that you would, when you get it set up, you would submit a limit order to buy Z% below yesterday's close. And Z could be 1, 2, or 3%. Or another option is to buy next day at the open. And I have designated this within the software and within the scripts, and you'll see this as we go through this, as Z being equal to 0%. So essentially Z could be 0, 1, 2, or 3. And the exit criteria, providing you're in a trade, then you need to know when to exit, can be one of the following. So close could be greater than the 3-period moving average, the 5-period moving average, RSI 2 could be greater than 50 or 70, and %B could be greater than 0.5, 0.75, or 1. So there are 7 possible exit criteria. You put all those together, the X, Y, Z values and all of the exit criteria, you end up with 504 variations. And that is calculated as follows. X has 6 possible values. %B, remember, has to be less than X. And there are 6 possible values for X. Y, the number of days in a row, the %B has to be less than X. There are 3 possible values for Y. Z is the percentage below yesterday's close where you set the limit order, and there are 4 possible values for that. And as I said, there are 7 possible exits. So put all those together, 6 by 3, by 4, by 7 is 504 variations. So quite a lot of variations. If you had to go and manually do back testing on that, all those variations, it could take you a while to put the scripts together, could take you a while to run the tests, and all that is done for you with the new template for August that has just been released. We're going to see how all of that's been put together, how I actually implemented all of that within the program. We're going to take a look at some of the scripts and how you could use the scripts if you wanted to use them manually instead of just running the template, which is a very automatic process. You might want to break it apart a little bit and just run individual scripts and do some manual testing like that. So let's get into the demo. And as you see in the program now, there's a new category of templates, and that is ETF Trading with Bollinger Bands. I click on that category. It tells me about the category, tells you where you can find more information about the strategy. So if you click on the link here, you'll go to the Trading Markets site where you can view information about the guide. They publish on there the results that they found, so you can see the statistical results that they have discovered by backtesting, and also obviously an opportunity to purchase that strategy guide. The category, when you click on the category, it then reveals 2 templates within EdgeRater PRO Unleashed, and there's a signals template, and this is pretty standard for what I've been producing when implementing the strategies from Connor's strategy guides. I've been providing a signals template so you can get daily trading signals, and I've also been providing a performance template where you can automatically run all of the variations of those strategies. And in order to see those templates, you have to click on the template link over here, and then the template will be displayed in the main area. You can choose a symbol list to run that template on, and then you can hit run. But I've shown that in some of the other videos for this launch series. What I want to do now is get into how I actually implemented these strategies, and that will give you some insight into the program. And if you're adventurous enough, you might want to take on and implement other strategies on your own, and this will provide some information on how you might do that, and also give you some insight into the amount of work that actually goes into producing these templates on a monthly basis. So let's go ahead and take a look at the scripts. That will be our first point of contact. So I'm going to first of all look at the performance report. This is the backtesting template, and then within the backtesting template I have got simulation settings worksheet within that template. Remember, templates are just Excel documents. You can view them in Excel, but if we look at them within EdgeRater, we can also see the template. And if we go to Simulation Settings tab on a trade simulation template, that will show us all of the simulations that are going to be run by hitting the Run button. So this gives us a lot of information about how to manually run a test. It tells us that the entry script is here. It tells us the exit script, whatever that is, will be listed here. And the parameters for the entry scripts and the exit scripts. Each line is a separate simulation run. And we're just going to take a look at some of the scripts now. So we can see that the entry script is ETFBB, stands for ETF Trading with Bollinger Bands _ setups. And then it's got a couple of parameters, and the parameters are actually the X and the Y parameters. And the exit script is also a scan, and it's PBGTX. That stands for %B greater than X. The parameters for this, though, are 5 and 1, being the values for the moving average and the number of standard deviations to use for the Bollinger Band setting. And then the actual threshold value that %B has to be greater in order for this exit to fire. And the way that we would go and look at these scripts and see what's actually going on is to go into one of the other tabs. I like to go into the security chart tab, and then I'll look for ETF BB _ setups, and you should find this in the category. If we scroll up here a little bit, you'll see the category of system scans. I know it's in the system scan category because in the template itself, in the worksheet, it had scan dot in front of the actual name of the script. That means it's in the system scans category. Now, in order to make this a little easier to view, I'm just going to set a filter into my script library, because I know all of the scripts that are involved with this strategy are all they all begin with a certain name, ETF BB. So if I set the filter here, there's a little button here. I can set the filter. I'm not sure of the video you can see that, but let me try and bring that over here. It's not going to happen. There we go, auto filter. I can say show rows where the name is like ETF BB star. So it will show me everything that starts with ETF BB and has anything after that first initial set of characters. And if I click OK here, we'll then see that the script library has now changed to only show things beginning with ETF BB. And we can see there are 2 system indicators and 1 system scan. Bear in mind the exit script was %b greater than x, so that's not going to show up in this filtered view of indicators and scans, and we can find that if we wanted a little later. I'm not going to go into that because that is purely a very simple calculation for %b being greater than a certain threshold. So let's take a look at the setup script, and the way I would do that is I would click on setups, and then I click on the edit, which is a little pencil icon here, and that will bring up the script editor dialog. And this just allows you to go into any scripts or indicators that are in the system and take a look at the code that is behind those scripts. And here you can see that this very closely matches with the rules for a setup. So close has to be greater than the 200 period moving average of close. Condition number 1. Condition number 2, the moving average, the 21 period moving average of volume has to be greater than or equal to 125,000 shares. And condition 3 is that the lowest low value of volume over 21 days has to be greater than 50,000. Now, even though if you go back and look at the slide where I talked about the entry criteria, I didn't actually mention that condition, that the lowest low value of volume has to be greater than or equal to 50,000. But if in the strategy guide, that is actually condition number 3, and it is implemented here in the script. So just a slight omission from the slide that I presented earlier. Condition 4 is the %b condition, and that is basically it's calling another script which is called %b, which calculates the %b value using parameters 5 and 1. So it's saying that the formula %b 5,1 less than or equal to x. And whereas x has been defined within the parameters tab here, we have x and y. So those are 2 parameters that can be applied to this script. And the y condition here is implemented by this line, condition 5, which is the lowest low value of condition 4. So %b less than or equal to x will give a 1 value if that condition is true, and a 0 value at all other times. So in looking for that condition to be true for a certain number of bars, this line addresses that, and it makes that happen. So it's saying that over y bars, you want the lowest low value of this condition 4, the 0 or the 1 value, to be equal to 1, which means that it had to be 1 for the whole of that time, and that's how it implements the condition of that %b has to be less than x for a certain number of days in a row. And then the event is fired, so the scan picks out something when condition 1 and condition 2 and condition 3 and condition 4 and condition 5, all of these conditions are true. And that is essentially the script for picking out a setup criteria. Let me close this down. And what I should show here is, let's, for example, we'll go to the entries and exits tab here. And now if I look for, of course, the filter is not applied in the entries and exits tab, we'd have to apply that again. So ETF BB star to just get the scripts we're sort of currently interested in. And then if I look at ETF BB setups, I pop that over into here. We'll use parameters of 0.1 and 2 and hit run. This is going to run this setup criteria on the list of 20 ETFs that I have over here in the symbol list area. So I hit that, and we can see the setups as they were fired for every day since 2008. The amount of data that I have in this list, by the way, is 6 years worth of data. Also remember that one of the criteria is that the 200 period moving average has to be, or close has to be greater than the 200 period moving average. So you're not going to start generating a signal until at least 200 bars after the start of the data that you have. So that's why the first signal doesn't start until June the 4th in 2008. And you can see on June the 4th you had EEM, EWZ, ILF, XLB, and XLE all fired a setup, which means that their percent B value was less than 0.1 for 2 days in a row. And if you want to verify that, this is another manual way to use the program. You can double click on a signal. So let's double click on, well, let's not choose one at the very beginning of the chart. Let's use one in the middle. So let's look at GLD on January the 5th, 2011. If I double click on that, bring over the chart into the video area, and it's pointing to the date, January the 5th, 2011, that I double clicked on, and it shows you the chart and what's happening. Now on this chart, we should probably add a indicator, and we'll add the ETF BB setups indicator, since that's the scan that we were running. And then if in ETF BB setups, if we look at the formula parameters and we look at 0.1 and 2 are set in here. And now let me just go back over here quickly, and we'll go back to GLD because it flipped over while we were doing some of the changes there. GLD, and now let's just click on, there's a little button up here to show annotations, so we can show those annotations. Okay, so now we see in this setups area, we see every time a signal was fired, the blue line goes from 0, which is at the bottom here, to 1. So this is just showing us all of the setups as they occur. Doesn't mean that there was a trade, because the setup criteria, remember, you also have to have the other criteria, which is a limit order when the setup occurs. So the first setup in GLD was here because percent B was less than 0.1 for 2 days in a row. And by the way, when I'm developing a script, I always like to verify, double check that everything is working correctly. So what I would do during development would be to put up a indicator of percent B, just so that I can see that that condition is correct. So let's go up to the indicators area, and we'll look for the percent B indicator, which is right here. Double click on that, that will pop it into the little chart area. And also we should set the parameters up. Remember I said the default values for percent B were 20 and 2. We need to set them to 5 and 1 for these strategies from the trading markets group. Okay, so let's now look at the value for percent B here. Where I hover my cursor, it is minus 0.136. So definitely less than 0.1. The day before, it was minus 0.417, also less than 0.1, so 2 days in a row. Day before that, it was actually 0.7, so it wasn't less than 0.1. So this is the first time that percent B was less than 0.1 for 2 days in a row, and that's why it's the first time you see here that the blue line goes to 1. That's a simple way when you're writing a script to verify that the criteria that you think you're testing do actually exist. I always like to do the visual check on the chart. Okay, so now let's take a look at the exit criteria. We'll go back over here just to refresh. The first exit criteria that is actually listed in this set of strategies is, or variations, is that percent B has to be greater than X. And if you scroll down through the list of 504 variations, you'll see all of the exit scripts change as I go down through here, because it's testing every single one of those 7 exit criterias over all of the other possible combinations of X, Y, and Z. So you can see the scripts that are used for that. But we're going to look at just one of them, and that is percent B greater than X, or PBGTX. So if I go back to the security chart, and in the security chart, what I'll do is I'll remove the filter, and I'm just going to look here. I'm going to sort this by name, and I'm going to look under scripts, which is system scans under the script library, and I'll look for PBGTX, which is right here, and I'll double click on that. And so the exit criteria, it fires a lot because this is looking for the condition where PBGTX 5.1 is greater than 0.75. So, and as I type that in, you'll see all of the places where that condition is true. And all we have to do with when we're doing a manual test is pop that into the exits tab. So I'm going to look for PBGTX. It's over here. I'm going to double click on that. I'm going to say 5.1 greater than 0.75. Let me find all conditions where that, all days and all symbols where that exit criteria has fired true. As you can see, there's quite a lot of data there. So now we have a list of exits, and I can double click on any one of the exits. It will also bring up a chart, and it will show me where the exit criteria occurred. This chart doesn't have PBGTX on it yet, so there are different charts. You can have different windows open, and each one will have a different set of indicators if you wish. So what I can do here is sort this by script name, and I'll look under system scans, and I'll look for PBGTX, which is down here. I'll pop that on the chart right there, and we see that where I clicked was this particular day here, which was August the 13th, 2013. And we also have on here the %B value, this indicator, and you can see %B here was 1.135, so it was definitely greater than 0.75. That criteria was met, and that would have exited the position. Now, in order to put these two things together, the entries and exits, and apply other parameters for our trade simulation, we come over to the trade simulation tab. We make sure that the exit rules are using an exit event, the events that we just generated, and we can say we're going to enter long, and if we're looking for limit order to be less than 2%, so that was one of the criteria, that if the setup condition occurs, you enter the next day on a limit Z% below the close of the setup bar. So we're going to say here, we're going to go long, next bar conditional, we're going to use the close of the next bar, and we're going to say 2%. Okay, so it's going to be 2% below. That will actually generate a trade. We're going to exit. We'll exit when there's an exit condition. We'll exit on the close of the event bar, and leave all other parameters the same. In portfolio rules, we'll make sure we've got allow duplicates. Maximum open positions is not checked. Dollars per trade, I always like to change that up to a larger number, just so there's enough room to buy any stock. Should there be a stock that costs $10,000, you want to be able to buy it in the simulation. Okay, and then I hit run. It'll run that simulation on all of the stocks that we use to generate the entries and exits, and it will come up with a line item for every single trade. And it's sorted basically by entry date, but you can resort this by clicking on any of the column headers, and you can see green in the profit and loss percent is a winning trade, red in the profit and loss is a losing trade, and you can see how the worst trade here was a 13.61% losing trade. I'm always curious to see what these trades look like on a chart, so I'll just double click on that, and now we can see a chart of this actual trade with the entry highlighted and the exit highlighted. So all of the conditions were in effect here for the entry. In fact, the bar before was your setup bar. There was a 2% intraday, 2% below the close of the setup bar. The entry is picked out here, which is in the middle of this bar. Now we're looking to exit when %B is greater than 0.75, but as you see here, the stock pretty much sold off for the next several days, and so there was, the %B never got greater than 0.75 until this exit here. Now, I'm showing this, but this is the worst trade in the whole of 6 years. So we always have to kind of be aware of what we might be getting into with the worst outcomes. what I can also do is show the best trade. And if I just go up to the top of this list, the best trade was a 9% winning trade. Let's take a look at that. And that was purchased down here. The setup, the previous day, there was an intraday sell-off of minus 2%. And then pretty much over the next 5 days, we got to the criteria then where %B was greater than 0.75, and it exited there. So that was a good trade. And if you want to just scroll through quickly through the list, when you've done a manual test, you can put the chart side by side with the trade list. I can't really do that on this video very easily, but let me just push this over here. And then you can just scroll up and down the trade list, and you'll see all of the trades that occurred in that simulation run. So it gives you, for the visually inclined, that is very useful, give you an idea of what these trades tend to look like. Now also, when you've run the trade simulation manually, rather than doing it through the automated process that runs 504 variations for you, and it does produce this report that I'm looking at interactively here. It produces an Excel report for every one of those variations, which you can then look at in Excel. But when you're in EdgeRater Pro and you're looking at the trade simulation result, you can click on the Next N Bars report. Next N Bars gives you statistical result of that simulation run, and it shows here, and this is quite an interesting result, it shows here a bias towards the positive side, or the right hand side of the gain loss curve. And that when you see something like that, you know that there is statistical significance in these trades. So it's interesting to take a look at. And also the chart below here, which you is very unique to EdgeRater, let's say, that shows you essentially every single trade. Every bar here represents a trade. If you see a red bar, it means the trade was a losing trade, and if you see a green bar, it was a winning trade. And then the actual wicks on these candles show you the extent of the trade during the time the trade was held. So if there is a large wick on the downside here, it means the trade was actually negative for some period during the trade, but it ended up being positive. So this gives you a very quick way to look through all of these trades and see, get a very quick glimpse of how they actually looked in general. So so I always like to take a look at that as well. And obviously there's also the trade summary, which gives you the essentially number of winners, number of losers, the average win per trade, 1.23%, and various other statistics that are useful to know when you're looking at a trading system. So anyway, that's how you'd manually go ahead and run one of these variations. Obviously, you don't really want to do that if you're going to do all 504 variations. That could take a while. So what you do then is you go to the templates, you click on your performance template, and you just hit run, and all of the variations will be run for you, and they'll produce the results and a summary of all the results. So now we're going to take a look at the results for the last 6 years. Let me take a look at that, and I'll bring that up in Excel, because I have run this report before. It doesn't take that long to run actually when you're running on a list of 20 ETFs. And the reason I chose these 20 ETFs for the run is because in Larry Connor's and Cesar Alvarez's first book, High Probability ETF Trading, they chose 20 ETFs to use for their backtesting. And I've kept that list, and I tend to run ETF strategies on that list of ETFs. So I'm just going to show now the result of running over these 20, what I call the 20 Connors ETFs. So here we are looking at the resulting report within Excel. And after you've run the report, you can view this. This is the report that gets shown within EdgeRater Pro as soon as you finish the run of the backtest. But as soon as you close EdgeRater Pro down, you can't get that back again unless you rerun the whole set of variations. But you can always look in the reports directory and find the report that was generated and view it within Excel, which is what I'm doing right here. So let me sort these by, we can sort by various parameters. We can sort by percent win, largest to smallest. Div 0 means there were no actual trades. There's a divide by 0 error going on here. That occurred for the variations that are so restrictive that even over the 6 years running over those 20 symbols, there were no actual trades made. So that's why you get div 0 sometimes when no trades are made. Then there are some with very few trades that had 100% winning criteria, the 100% win. We might want to overlook those. They might not really be statistically significant with so few trades. When we get into the meat of it, we can sort by, let's say, largest to smallest profit and loss, and we'll come into some of these trades which made around 2%, 143 trades, there's a 2% win there, 100 trades with a 2% average profit per trade. Bear in mind, I'm only running this on 20 ETFs. So you could run this on a list of 800 ETFs if you want to get more signals. Okay, and we can scroll all the way down here. So let's find out average profit and loss, largest to smallest, and scroll down here till we get to negative average profit per trade and see where that starts to kick in. So we're on row 479 out of 500, around 500. So there were approximately 20 variations of this strategy that actually were no good over that 6-year period. So you could take a look at the parameters here and try and figure out why that might be the case, and obviously choose not to trade those, and just stick to the ones that have parameters that are to your liking. If you like to make a lot of trades, then look for the largest number of trades. So the largest number of trades was here with 3,000 trades, but only an average profit per trade of 0.2% with a average hold period of 3.2 days. So if you like to see how many trades or get the largest number, you can sort by number of trades, but then you can scroll down this list until you find something that is more interesting and gives a reasonable average profit and loss per trade. Bear in mind, these simulations were run without any commissions factored in, and so when you factor in commissions, your average profit per trade is gonna go down. And if it's only at 0.2 or 0.1, that's probably not a strategy that you can trade, or a variation that you can trade when you're trading with commissions. But there are ways of trading without commissions. For instance, the one source ETFs from Schwab, a set of ETFs that you can trade without commissions. And I believe there are other ways of trading without ETFs without commissions too. Okay, so that's a set of the set of results for the 20 ETFs over 6 years using ETF trading with Bollinger Bands, all 504 variations. And then there's the signals template, which is the one thing that you would run every day. The performance and the trade simulation, you wouldn't want to run that every day. There's no need, but you could check on it, once a month or once a quarter, once every 6 months, just to see how the variations are behaving over that period of time. You could also choose different time frames to run those variations on. But the signals template you would run every day, because this is giving you the actual trading signals. So if I hit run now, and I've got my data updated to yesterday, the 20th of August, and I hit run, I can see that there are, in the 3 variations that I've chosen to look at, and let me close this down so you can see what they are. We can see that the first variation, which is the least strict of the variation, there's a few, they're already in trades and they're holding along right now. The next variation have next day limit orders, so this is what I would look at daily. The third variation, there's no signals at all. That's the most strict variation. But this one here might be interesting. If this is something I'm looking at trading, I would look then through this list and say, this is what I need to enter with my Think or Swim platform or my TradeStation platform, and I need to set a buy next day limit, and these are the limit orders for this particular variation. Now, always within these templates, when you're viewing them within EdgeRater Pro, and this doesn't apply if you're viewing the results of the report in Excel, but if you're reviewing them in EdgeRater Pro Unleashed after you've done the run, you can always do things like double click on a cell and it will bring up a chart showing the relevant information. So because I clicked on the row here with SPY, then it's brought up a chart of SPY, and this is a essentially this is a trading signals template. So we need to be looking at the very last bar of this template, so I can scroll to the very end, and there are some layouts included with this template. So for August, I also included 3 layouts for ETF trading with Bollinger Bands, which correspond to the 3 variations of the strategy that I'm looking at. Anybody can create their own layout or modify one of these layouts and resave it. So if you have your own variations you want to look at, take a look at the simple customization video to figure out how to put your variation into your own template. And then to actually change one of the layouts so it's appropriate for you, then you would just change the parameters down here for the particular chart and then resave it. And it would then come under your My Layouts folder. So let's take a look at the middle variation. And middle variation is firing a buy next day limit. And we should look at what the strategy is. It's X is 0.3. So %B has to be less than 0.3 for 3 days in a row. And then the limit order is 3% below the close. And you're exiting when %B is greater than 1. So on this chart, we see that there have really been no signals, no trades taken. Well, we have to go all the way back to, let's see, 2010 to see where those trades actually occurred in SPY. The ETF BB_system script just shows you every time so that you can review on a chart so you can see every trade that was made. There's a 1 value on the entry, and as it goes back to 0 when the trade exits. So just by scrolling through this chart, you can see per symbol where all the trades were made. There is another script, for those who've been paying attention, which is called ETF BB_state. And if I find that, that will be under System Indicators. And I'll look for ETF BB_state. I'll pop that in there. I have to set my parameters up because this isn't a pre-programmed one as yet. I haven't saved this as a layout just yet. So come to Formula Parameters, and we go 0.3, 3, and 3. And we're exiting when %B is greater than 0.75. Okay, so now if we look at this, the state, this will show us all of the limit orders when they were fired. So there's the actual value of the limit order is indicated by this blue line now. So if I hover over the last bar, which was Tuesday, you can see that the limit order is 160.61, which is exactly what it says for the limit order. So that coincides with what we expect to see. So that's it, a quick review of the new template for August, the ETF Trading with Bollinger Bands template.